Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back once again to Dauntless. As always, I am D, and today I'll be bringing you the Fearless Slayers Guide to the Gnasher Hunt. Yes, folks, it's finally time. Today we're actually starting the look into the bestiary I've been assembling, because I actually have made a study of most of the beasts. There's two I still haven't fought, and I'm working on getting to them. But for now, we'll be focusing on the starting beast, that is the Gnasher. Now, a couple of things before we go in. The way I'm going to do these is, with this one at least, I'm going to start off by talking a little bit about items, and I'll talk a little bit about the UI when I get into the hunt. But for the most part, I'm going to talk about some of the dangers of the beast. I'm also going to talk about how many attacks they have. In the case of the Gnasher, it has about 7 attacks, which is, it sounds like a few to remember, but they're actually pretty simple. They also all have tells, which is a big thing. Just like in Monster Hunter, which is probably the simplest comparison to make to a game like Dauntless, the beasts will make a certain motion or a certain action that tells you, oh, it's about to do this attack. For example, the Gnasher, one of its more common attacks is what I like to call the body slam flip. What it does is the tell there is actually very simple, and I'll try to point it out as we go into the match, or as we go into the hunt. Now, one thing to know is that I'm going to be doing all of these that I can on tier 2, because the tier 1 beasts lack some of the abilities that I can show you. So I want to make sure that you can see as much as possible while I still have a good chance to fight the beast for a long time and give you an example of what it does. Some of these things I will not be able to do that with, such as one of the beasts that I really don't like to fight, the Pangar, because the Pangar is only available at tier 4. In cases like that, I will be fighting alongside a team of probably random slayers. At that point, I might just cut the commentary and do it all in post. All of this right now is being done as I'm recording. This is all live commentary. We'll see how things work out with that. Also, just as a heads up, this is my second time recording this because Shadowplay royally messed up with the sound. But yeah, so here at tier 2, we have the Gnasher, the Shrike, the Quillshot, the Charog, and the Skarn. One thing to note as well before I go into this, you'll notice down here it says I have 14 Wayfinder marks in the Monstrous Verge. Monstrous Verge is the tier 2 area. Normally when you first start in a new area, what you have to do is you have to do a patrol. This patrol will get you a Wayfinder mark. That's just the easiest way to put it. Once you have a Wayfinder mark, you can create a new pursuit. Each pursuit will actually get, even if you do like I'm going to do a Gnasher pursuit here. If I beat this Gnasher, I'll get another Wayfinder mark. So they kind of pay for themselves as it goes. Alright, so we're just going to do a private hunt. I'll talk about the loadout when we get into the airship in just a second. That right there I just do as a timing, planting my banner in the middle of town. It's just, that lets me know exactly when I'm going to be ready. Alright, so before we go in, I'm going to look at the loadout. I'm going to be using my Superior Warpike, which has been upgraded a couple of times. I think it's level 4 now. Yeah, so I've only got one more level to upgrade that. I'll also be sticking with my armor. I've got Storm Plate for the chest piece, Storm Bracers on my arms, Karabak Greaves, the Hell Casque, which is the Hellion head armor, and an Azaga Lantern. I haven't talked about cells yet. I'll do that in a separate video. The big thing to note here, though, are your supplies. You have 5 slots, natively assigned on a keyboard, because I use keyboard and mouse, to 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. 1 is your healing items. These are your healing potions. You can have different levels of this. The higher level healing potions are harder to make because they require rarer ingredients, but they will also heal you for more HP each time you use one. I stick to simple healing potions, which are the base level, because I try my damnedest to not get hit very often. Your 2 is your offense slot. I usually keep this as just a stamina potion because I use a lot of stamina in my playstyle. There's other things you can get in here, such as the Berserker potions and other potions that give you stronger attack. Then there's the defense slot. This is where you have a lot more choices. Right now I've got a simple revive stim, which will, if I go down, allow me to get back up without somebody coming over to revive me. This is an important item, and I'll talk about it a little more once we get into the actual hunt, because there's some stuff I still need to talk about there. You can also have elemental resistances. I have Frost, Blaze, and Shock. You have a regular resistance potion. This gives you more physical defense. You also have things like healing pylons, which are AoE heals you can plant for your team to use. I don't know if they can be destroyed by the behemoth because most people use these after the behemoth has run away. One other thing I don't have is a team revive. It acts just like the simple revive, but instead of just reviving me, it'll revive the entire team. On your 4 is probably one of your most important tools, the flare. I'll show it off more once we're again in the hunt, but the flare is used to draw attention to something interesting. Usually your teammates will use this to say, hey, the behemoth is over here. You can get different ones. The basic one is just a simple flag. I use the dauntless symbol. And then finally 5 is your airdrop. This is another kind of flare. You have to hold this one to use it, but it launches up and usually brings in something as a bonus. The resource spotters will spot different levels of resources that thus makes your item hunting a lot easier. So if you're really low on, say, sweet berries, you can bring in a common resource spotter, throw it in the air, and you'll be able to see them. They'll be highlighted by the leaf symbol. These, with the boxes with parachutes, these are healing supply drops. They act a lot like what I call the rift. You'll see the rift when we get into the fight. These have 3 uses, and they act just like a healing potion, but anybody can use them. Once the 3 are used up, though, the entire thing goes away. If somebody uses one of these, you'll see the same symbol on your compass that you would for a flare, but then you'll also see a yellow and black checkered box where the healing supplies are dropped. Now, normally you have 5 minutes, but I took quite a bit of time, so we only have about a minute and a half. However, if everybody readies up, like this, you have 10 seconds. During which time the server has the option of just completely shitting its pants. Luckily, it doesn't seem to be happening right now, so. Now, the hard part about doing this kind of video is that I have to try and taunt the behemoth, without actually taunting it, into using certain attacks. You'll see what I mean when I find the bloody Gnasher. Also, the fact that I'm doing this in the middle of a thunderstorm with a spear seems like a really bad idea, especially with how pointy my armor is. I know I look a lot like the Shredder. Anyway, before we get going, you'll notice your hotbar is on the bottom right. Bottom left, you have your chat. Top left, you have your health and stamina bars. I've already talked about those a little bit. The little bullet-shaped kind of deal in the top left corner, that is your lantern. It used to look different. If you use a lantern like me, where it has an ability besides helping you track the behemoth, picking up these Aether Wisps is great because it will charge it a little bit. More Aether Wisps mean faster lantern charge. The top right, however, is probably one of the most important things. That triangle is the danger meter. If it hits 100%, your team cannot revive you if you go down. That's actually what having a team revive or a self-revive is really important for, because if your team cannot revive you, you're useless. So make sure that your team, that's why if you know you're going into a super dangerous hunt, have a revive stim, have a team revive stim, something to help your team stay in the fight. Now, I mentioned the rift. I'll be able to show you once I find the Gnasher, because the beasts are always found around active rifts. Also, another reason to pick up Aether Wisps is they give you a speed boost. I'll go ahead and talk a little bit about cells since I've got some time before I find the beast. What a cell is it's a lot like a rune or a gem in Diablo. You slot it into an item, and it affects how that item works. You can get ones that will give you bonuses to your defenses, some that will give you extra damage on certain attacks. Each cell is a little different, and there's different rarities of cells, and the stronger rarities will of course have more powerful effects. There's probably one of the most useful one is actually one for the chest armor, which gives you a one-time auto revive. If you go down, you can get back up with a certain amount of health. Of course, not knowing what the actual maximum health amount is means 400 health, which is the common one that I've got. I don't have it in this armor, but it kind of means, okay, I'm coming back with 400 health. How does that stack up with what I've got, with what I started with? You'll notice I'm just running around collecting resources right now. Partly that's because I don't really have any fear of the Gnasher. Because again, it's got 7 attacks. I've got tells for all. I've studied them. I've got tells for all of them. And if you want to make fun of me for studying a giant beaver squirrel monster the size of a small bus, keep in mind I'm doing it to help other people. Also, I have fun. Some people like to be the best at certain things in games. Me, I like to know. I like to learn things. Yes, I'm a nerd. Deal with it. Now, once we find the Gnasher, I'll demonstrate what the flare is like, or why the flare is important. Once I actually find the bloody thing. Ah, there it is. Oh, crap. I didn't want to fall off. There's the Gnasher, and the raised rocks with the blue mist coming out of it, that's the rift. Each one of those has 5 charges you can use. You don't want to get hit during it, but it will heal you a decent amount. There is one thing most people don't seem to talk about, though. Those rifts and their 5 charges, the behemoths can use them as well. Typically, they'll do it after they've run away the first time. But the behemoths will go and eat 2 charges out of the rift, and it will heal their damage. But yes, the flare, I'm going to go ahead and send it up. You can send it up straight if you're standing still. It pops in the air. You'll see the flag on the compass to the top of the screen. That will tell you exactly where it is. That will also show up on your teammates' compasses. Typically, you want to use this if you've spotted the behemoth. If you're moving towards the behemoth, or if you're just moving in a direction and you toss the flare, you'll notice it goes out forward. It's a good tool to have. Get used to using it. Anyway, let's go ahead and get into the fight, because the Gnasher, well, the Gnasher ain't gonna kill itself. I mean, it might. I don't know what this thing's home life is like, so I don't know if it's suicidal or not. All right, like I said, the Gnasher has 7 attacks. One of them is not really an attack so much as it is a buff, and it's also the reason I'm doing this at tier 2. All right, it's getting ready. There's its belly slide attack. You'll notice it took a step back, bobbed its head, and jumped a little bit. That's your tell. It then slides forward on its belly a decent amount. Once you hit tier 3, the Gnasher can actually do that 4 times in a row. And it does a quick little hop between each slide. There's also what I call opportunities. The opportunity on the belly slide is if you can hit it in the head with a shot from a warpike, or like a hammer shot, it will actually knock the behemoth over and typically give your team some free damage. What you just saw there is what I like is the body slam flip. You see how it kind of bobs up and down, lowers its head a little bit, and shifts a little bit of its weight between its feet? That's actually not as easy to notice, but... And then it does the flip, where it does the leap and flip over. You don't want to be anywhere near where it lands, because that is one of its more dangerous attacks. One thing you'll notice, though, is the Gnasher always rolls away from you to its right. Well, not necessarily away from you, but it always rolls to its right after it uses that attack. Every single time, it will roll to its right. So if you land like me on its left, use it to get some free damage. The belly slide, as I was saying, at tier... One of the bad things about it is also at higher levels, at higher tiers, when it turns into the Rage Tail. When you're fighting a Rage Tail rather than a regular Gnasher like this, the belly slide can actually also cause wounding. It does have another attack that causes that more regularly, but the belly slide can as well. I'm going to see if I can taunt out its tail swipe. Oh, no, I got the tail slam. Alright, the tail slam you saw, it lowers its entire body in kind of a wave motion from the head back, and then it leaps into the air and slams its tail down. That is the only attack it has that actually gains a new effect when it enrages. There's its tail swipe. You saw it look to its left, and then it moved its tail from my left to my right. It's a very large AoE attack, and it has a hitbox for the entire thing. That attack becomes much, much more dangerous at tier 3 when it's the Rage Tail, because that attack can actually hit in a 360-degree arc, and the Gnasher will do that a lot. However, you can roll. You can roll through the tail if you time it right. Alright, that is 4 of the attacks. You'll notice I haven't talked about 3 of them yet. One of them I kind of hinted at a little bit. Dodge that. Similar to the belly slide is called the bite attack. What it'll do is it backs up a little bit, kind of like you saw there, but not quite that much. The big key to the fact that it's going to do the bite over just backing up is that, okay, it's tired and it's moving on its own because the game is a little buggy. Early access is early access, folks. I'm going to charge my next shot, so I've got a bigger one. But the bite attack, the key to knowing it's going to be the bite attack rather than anything else is the tail. The Gnasher's tail, when it goes for its bite, curls up into basically a half moon shape, if you want to think of it that way. That is the key to tell that it's going to do that. Also, yes, it can reverse direction on the tail swipe, so be careful. The way it's looking is the way the tail is going to ultimately go. So it looked to its right, the tail came ultimately to the beast's right. The other attacks it has, the other 2 basic attacks it has, as the Gnasher, are a stomp attack. The stomp attack, what it'll do is it'll lean heavily to one side. See if I can get you to, see if I can taunt it out of here. It's hard to get specific attacks sometimes. But you'll actually see it when it hits the 7th attack. But it'll lean heavily to one side and raise the other leg. So if it leans heavily to its right, it'll raise its left leg. If it leans to the left, it raises the right leg. Simple enough. Then it stomps down. The stomp actually has a decent AoE, so you really want to roll away from it. Don't try to walk. Just with the bite, you want to roll to the side because the lunge is actually at a much higher distance than you're expecting. Now, I've mentioned it has 7 attacks, but I've talked about 6. The 7th attack is right there, actually. And that's actually a good example of how the stomp looks. Normally, the stomp only goes once. But this is its enrage. Aside from attacking this is the only way it's different, really, you'll notice its tail stomp, or tail slam, goes 4 times. One thing to note about how that becomes dangerous is that it's A, faster, and B, the multiple attacks. If you're just out of range of the first attack on that tail stomp, you'll notice I'm going to stand right here. It's actually getting closer. Normally, it will choose one target for that and go after them exclusively. However, if that target goes down or if somebody else draws the aggro, it will swap targets. Don't count on aiming for somebody else on your team to keep you safe. And right there is actually another key to how the enrage mode works. When the enrage mode wears off, it will run off a little distance and it'll be exhausted for a bit. Its scales will turn back. But you'll notice the enrage, it does 5 stomps in a row, causing little plumes of red. Its eyes will also smoke red as well, and the blue lines and the blue scales on its back turn red. One thing I couldn't show you because I hadn't cut its tail off yet is that the meat in its tail will also turn red. Those are the basic attacks of the Gnasher. Aside from the change to the tail slam attack that I already pointed out, where it does it 4 times, the only difference for the regular Gnasher is that it tends to go a lot. The enrage attacks tend to hit faster. They tend to hit harder. A lot harder. I'm going to avoid showing you how much damage it does because I like fighting. I like winning. Also, when it's doing that roar like that, that's not an attack. That's just saying that is the beast saying, "Hey, I know you're here. Come fight me." Use that to get some free damage if you can. Tail slam. There's the flip. And there, it's already enraged. Now, typically, one of the things about enrage is that it actually presents opportunity as well. If you can break off a part while a beast is in mid rage, if it's if I had managed to break off the Gnasher's tail while it was enraging, there's a chance to actually stop the enrage from going off. There's the bite attack, actually. You saw it draw back, lower its head, and then lunge forward. If I'd actually been able to move, I would have been able to dodge it, but I wasn't. But like I was saying, if you can break off a piece during the enrage activation, there's the stomp. It missed me entirely. There's the other stomp. It typically does that at tier 2 when it's enraged, but breaking off a piece while the thing is enraging has a chance to actually entirely stop the enrage from activating for a moment. Now, typically the beast will then attempt to enter enrage again. So don't count on this to stop it from permanently enraging. But one thing about the enrage is that you'll only see it at tier 2. That's why I'm doing it. That's why I'm fighting tier 2 beasts exclusively, if I can. There's a third enrage so quickly? That's a little strange, but hey. There goes the tail, and now you can see how the meat inside the tail has turned red. And you'll notice it's still, even without its tail, it still does some attacks, like the tail slam, or the body flip slam. Body slam flip. I keep changing how I call that because I'm trying to stay alive, and I can't really look at my bestiary on my other monitor. But you'll notice that a lot of its attacks are actually now coming quite a bit faster, so I have to be much more mobile. I mean, it is still a Gnasher. Do not underestimate your beasts, though. The behemoths are very dangerous, especially before you learn the tells. Now, one thing about the tells that I've been giving you guys is that the way I learned these is the hard way. I did this all from just observation and study while fighting these things. But you still need to kind of internalize them yourselves. I know it's because, like I said, I studied all of these myself. Plant my banner because I won. Also, one thing about the danger that I didn't mention earlier is that if the danger hits 100, your only choice is to kill the behemoth, drive it off, or die. Now, one of the other things I'm going to do with this series is that when I finish the beast, I'll go over its attacks in brief once I'm back in Ramsgate. I'm not going to do the item overviews for the other behemoths because you don't need those. I did it once already. 3 Gnasher hides, pretty good. Alright, let's go over here. Now, as I was saying, I'm going to go over the behemoth's abilities in brief. Okay. I don't even know what sword that is. Oh well. Now, the Gnasher again has 7 attacks to keep in mind. The body slam flip, where it lowers its head slightly, kind of does little hops between feet, and then does a forward leaping flip. Remember that when it recovers from this, it will always roll to its own right side. If you're on its left side, take some free hits. The tail swipe, where it looks over one of its shoulders and then sweeps opposite that direction. So if it looks over its right, it's going to go right to left. If it looks over its left shoulder, it's going to go left to right. From your perspective, if you're facing it. And remember, when you hit tier 3, which is the yonder keys, the Rage Tail Gnasher can actually do a 360-degree spin, which also moves it forward a little bit. I didn't mention that earlier. Oh, you can actually get out there. Cool. This is a very dangerous attack. It becomes much... You'll see it occasionally, but very rarely if you manage to take the Gnasher's tail off. The belly slide, where what it'll do is it'll lower itself down, hop up and down twice, and then slide forward, mouth first. If you notice, it pulls one of its legs slightly back, not very much, before it does this. And at tier 3, again, in the Yonder Keys, the Ragetail Gnasher can slide 4 times in a row, in very quick succession, and there's a very short hop after each slide where it turns and slides again. If it just hops and lands on its feet, you know it's done. If it hops and doesn't land and spins around to land on its stomach again, it's not done. Remember, this is also where your big opportunity comes in. Shoot it in the head with either a cannon shot from a hammer teammate, or from a shot from your war pike. This has a good chance to knock it over and give your team some free damage. Next up, the tail slam. The whole body lowers starting with the head, goes in a wave motion, leading to the beast to jump into the air and slam its tail down. When it's enraged, which is at tier 2, which we just did, it will slam up to 4 times. Sometimes it'll slam once. It'll only ever slam 1 or 4 times. It doesn't do 2 or 3. And it usually targets one person. However, it can switch, so be careful. And each slam after the first lets the Gnasher move just a little bit, so you're not in the clear if you barely dodge the first one. Keep moving. The stomp, where it leans heavily to one side, raises one foot, and then slams it on the ground with a small AoE. The bite, it backs up a little bit, shifting its weight to the back foot, then lunges forward quite fast, quite heavily. This has long range, so dodge to the side. And then, of course, the enrage, where it stomps 5 times in sequence. Red smoke comes from its eyes, its scales and tail lines turn red, as does the meat inside its tail if you've cut it off. And again, the only attack that changes is the tail slam. Everything else just gets faster and stronger for a bit. Well, folks, I hope you've enjoyed this. The next one will be a little shorter because I don't have to go over the items again. But if you did, please feel like or favorite the video. You can also leave a comment down below if you have anything you'd like to say. If you want to keep up with me and never miss any of my current series, then please feel free to join the squadron. I'm always looking for new recruits. And the Fearless Slayers are always looking to expand. It's not actually a real guild in this game, but hey. So you can always do that by subscribing to the channel. That does help me out, and I really do appreciate it. But as for that, I have been D. This has been the Fearless Slayers Guide to the Gnasher Hunt. For now, good night, and good gaming.